the Chapter talk, but also that I've been experimenting with using these clickers technologies, which have been very popular in the US, but maybe haven't generated as much traction in Europe yet. So what is a clicker? It's very easy to think of. It's just like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You have a little handheld device, or you as students have a little handheld device with little buttons that you can push to respond for your responses to my questions. And so I, as a lecturer, will, hopefully, next slide, produce a question. For example, I might ask you, our lecturer is busy, bossy, batty, balmy, or not sure. And you'll be able to use this little device to communicate back with me. Now you can see this is quite a big change from a normal lecture, where I'm standing up there talking away to you, and I'm just seeing bored faces or sort of confused faces. Because what happens is that the clicker signal then from the little handheld device is captured in my laptop by a little dongle using a radio frequency signal, and this little dongle then interfaces with software that I can run at the same time as my presentation in the computer, and the presentation software, the clicker software will then allow me to either collect responses so that I can understand, for assessment purposes, whether you understood what I talked about, but most valuably, I think at least, I can then display the graph of the responses that a lot of people think I'm balmy, and we can talk about the problem here. So I think that's the technology. The question is, why would I want to make my life difficult? Once you've got your head around giving a lecture, talking in front of a group of critical students, why would you then want to get their feedback again in real time and have them responding to you? So I thought, sort of in the spirit of talking a little bit between the theoretical and the practical, I'd talk about the reasons why I at least think this technology is useful. Firstly, our biggest problem, certainly our biggest problem in biochemistry, and I'm beginning to understand in accountancy as well, is engaging the students. So many we have below 50% attendance at lectures, just like everybody does, and the students don't seem to be interested. They're not excited by what I'm trying to say. Secondly, for the enthusiastic students, they're still sitting there like yourselves, enthusiastic technology innovators. You're still sitting there very passively. So want to engage further, so to empower, to give this feeling that the students have some sort of a control over what's going on, even though we're using a conventional lecture format. And then thirdly, it is actually interesting, as some of you laughed before, to know whether the students actually understood what you thought you had explained perfectly clearly. So as we heard with the accountancy example, sometimes you think you've done everything right, and nevertheless the students don't seem to have picked it up. And so this gives you a real-time opportunity of talking about it. Now, obviously, with any technology, as we heard from James Clay in the first place, you get a lot of people saying, why not? So I thought I'd also cover the reasons, or at least my responses, that I would have to people who are asking, why wouldn't you, or why would I go and do this? Why would I be a masochist and work along? So the first problem is preparation time. And I think that's actually the hardest thing if you get involved with clickers, is thinking of the questions. It seems ironic. It's not thinking of the answers, but making good questions, because they're not like multiple choice questions in an exam paper, because you're going to have to talk about the answer afterwards, develop the ideas if you want to use them. Secondly, if you're talking about it, you're obviously not talking about the supposed important content that you normally talk about, and so you're going to use 10 or 15 minutes perhaps of your precious 45, 50-minute lecture actually interacting with these questions. And so that means that something's going to have to go. You're going to have to redesign your lecture content. Thirdly, just when we've got the hang of PowerPoint, you remember a few years ago, if you had a talk like this, then there'd be lots of PowerPoint pictures, but we've only had one so far today. So you have these, you have a whole new barrier of technical problems that you've got to get over. But as James Clay said, so get over them. And then the last question, the last negative point I'd say is this idea of that I've been thinking about a little bit is, should we just give up the whole lecture format altogether? Because we're sort of holding back the tide here by a semi-interactive mechanism. I don't have a good answer for that yet, but I think it's something to bear in mind when we're talking about it. Okay, so the last part I thought is we get from the conceptual down to the pragmatic a little bit is how do you implement this clicker technology. So unfortunately, Pachacha doesn't work with clickers from the point of view that the questions will be going faster and your responses might be a bit slow. So we'll just talk about this in hand-wavy terms. So firstly, how can you use it? Well, you can get interaction in any sort of presentation. I'd love to know whether you think I'm making any sense up here, so I could ask you a question. And you can use that for assessment, attendance, we can find out whether you're here, or even peer feedback. So, us as peers could talk about whether we think that the presentation is any good. So it's about, there's a little bit of a cost, so it's about 30 euros per clicker, so a set like we have, or the standard sets we have of about 30 clickers, or about 1,000 euros. So, but these are shared resources. You can have them in a case and carry them around. You don't need to have a full lecture theatre set of these. Because of this, and because you can use the principles of peer instruction, that just means getting people to talk to each other and then give you one response, you can make those 30 clickers then, that we have in the set, you can spread them over up to 150 students by just grouping the students together. The idea of peer instruction is that the students instruct each other in the process of discussing. And finally, there's this problem of question design. And so you saw that my Batty lecture example had a not sure option at the bottom, and you have to try and design the question so that 40 to 60% of people are going to get the idea, because if it's 25% it was random, if it's 100% you're wasting your time by asking the question, they all knew the answer. So I think this is my last slide, firstly to acknowledge the help of the people in KELP that I've had with adopting this, and secondly to be a little bit of an evangelist, not for online or video-based technologies, but also some sort of hardwired technologies like these clickers. So I'd encourage you to have a go with those as well.
Well done.